Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Abbs and I am the founder and CEO of Web3 Equity, and I am so excited to be here today because we are going to have a great conversation about defining DAOs and understanding them from a legal perspective, because I am joined here with my friend and partner in crime, although we do no crimes because
Correct.
We don't have any legal repercussions, right? But this is Laura Cole, who is a blockchain attorney and a trusted source around these things. Today, what we're really going to talk about is DAOs. So let's break down, what does DAO stand for? So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. And essentially what this means is that multiple people can come together, they can pool assets together, and through a decentralized governance structure, they can make decisions about what to do with those assets. And all of this occurs on the blockchain, so it is recorded on a digital ledger. And so it's transparent and the public can see what is happening with that. Anyone who owns a token from within the DAO can see all of the moves that are happening. So there's a lot of power in DAOs, and people are very excited about the potential of DAOs in multiple markets. So we want to start from the beginning. We want to define the different types of DAOs there are, and then we want to understand, what some of the legal implications are. So, Laura, we're going to hand it over to you now to break down the different types of DAOs we see. And I know there are various formations of DAOs, but we're going to talk through 4 examples and really what differentiates them in terms of the purpose of why they're formed and sort of how they operate within that formation. So can you give us a couple examples of different types of DAOs?
So social DAOs operate by community-driven governance, and the governance is what you brought up that makes a DAO, is how you operate that DAO. It's how you vote on things, it's how the DAO moves and makes decisions. And so community-driven DAOs, similar to developer DAO that you might have heard of, operate that in that way so that they can build on-chain stuff, they can make decisions and vote, but they're less about that financial incentive.
Oh, yes. And actually, we love Developer DAO. They are friends. We've done events with them and partnered, some of the folks in our Untitled tribe with some of their engineers. And that's right. They are really putting ideas out to the community, and the community is voting on which ideas to build. So ultimately, no real exchange or investment vehicle in the social DAO format. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's talk about another example of a DAO.
Another example would be a protocol DAO. That one is more oriented towards the DeFi sector, which is a decentralized financial protocol. Those DAOs operate with governance on-chain to determine the incentives that you'll see in those DeFi protocols. That one you might have heard of. It was an early one. MakerDAO is probably a major player in that.
That's right. Yeah, they were one of the earliest. Now, let's get into the really juicy, fun ones, right? Not that the first 2 were not fun, but I feel like we're building to something here. We have another example of a DAO.
So there's also grant and philanthropic DAOs, which are great, and those are more near and dear to people's hearts because you vote on things that you believe in, things you want to support. Ukraine DAO would be an example. And then an even juicier type of DAO would be collectors DAOs. And that's where people are really getting into this space because NFTs are the hot topic of 2021 going into 2022. And those collections have been exploding. People want to get in and they want to be able to afford it, but they can't. So they collectively form these DAOs to invest in some of the pricier NFTs as they start to grow and expand. And those also operate on-chain governance. So you vote on which projects you want to get into, but they're definitely more collector-oriented, financially driven, similar to investment DAOs, which are purely for the flip. People throw shared money into the wallet. Those decisions get made on-chain. And it's purely for investment, purely for the profits. That's really the goals of those.
So I imagine, given different goals and purposes of different DAOs, there are different entity formations of these, right? And we probably see these show up in legal governance structures very differently. So can you talk to us about what the entity formation side of DAOs is?
So a DAO, as it stands, if you have members in the U.S., the U.S. jurisdiction will treat every single DAO that does nothing as a general partnership. That's the presumptive nature of that entity. Sole proprietorship, general partnership status. That means that each member of that DAO is jointly and severally liable for the actions of the entire DAO. So there's a lot of exposure there. So you're seeing some DAOs go and proactively form different entities or corporations or LLCs in various jurisdictions among the U.S. One of them being Delaware, Florida, because we happen to have a lot of crypto-oriented people here, and the other one is Wyoming, which kind of came out of nowhere, but their legislature seemed to really get excited and be proactive in trying to adopt some of these mechanisms, and so that's an option too. Whether or not any particular jurisdiction is right for your DAO is very, very fact-specific.
So before we get into people making decisions on their DAOs, let's back that up, because there was something really important you just said there. So if I am part of a DAO, I'm actually legally intertwined with everyone else that is part of that DAO. So the decision of which DAO I will join or how, I will make that decision is probably very important to look into who else is in that community.
Absolutely.
So that's a key part we want to make sure we think about, and the implications here with choosing a DAO to be a part of. And then its setup is a partnership to begin with, unless there is an entity formation within, and those states that you mentioned are sort of the preferred states to form the entity of the LLC.
Correct.
Okay.
So your default is going to be the general partnership, which comes with some exposure that you may not be comfortable with. So then you proactively might want to form some sort of entity in any given jurisdiction. Some are better than others. Some might not be in the U.S., depending on what you're doing. But there's a lot of options. It's very important to know what your DAO is doing and who's doing it and where they're doing it.
So I imagine, being a blockchain attorney, you probably have really wonderful clients.
Yes.
But sometimes you might be kept awake at night worrying about certain things that are happening, especially some of the implications around the SEC. Can you walk us through some of the things we should be really thoughtful about? And we've heard about this thing of the Howey Test. Can you explain what is the Howey Test and what should we be thinking about if we are going to invest in a DAO?
Yes, so the Howey Test is the standard test for what a security is, and the SEC regulates security. So with these on-chain governance, whether or not your token that you get to vote with in a DAO is a security is dependent on the factors in the Howey Test. One of the main factors that becomes really important in a DAO is through the efforts of others, which is why participation in a DAO is really key, because one inactive member could create a problem for the entire DAO. And now we're back to understanding how it's a general partnership. So the actions of one member can really impact the actions of the entire DAO if they're not active enough. And that activity is important because you're trying to overcome through the efforts of other elements of the Howey Test.
Oh, that's interesting. See, with my DAO, when I would forget to vote and they kept pinging me, I just thought that was because they really wanted my opinion.
Yes,
but it's
they do. They really want that opinion.
They do.
They want to be protected.
They want to be protected. Yes. Okay, very
Your
key.
opinion becomes so important because everyone's opinion becomes so important. That's the nature of a DAO. That's what makes it a truly decentralized, autonomous organization, and that's what helps overcome the barriers in Howey that you're seeing. It's derived profits not through the efforts of others, because you're there participating in every decision that DAO makes, and that's what makes it an okay thing in the eyes of the SEC.
Great. So not only do I need to be ready to choose which DAO I'm going to invest in based on the purpose of the DAO and how I want to engage, but I have to be ready to really carve out some time and participate.
Yes.
Because if I don't, not only am I going to frustrate the other folks in the community, I actually could put us all at risk.
Truly.
Great.
That's definitely a key factor. There's other factors, and they are all kind of fact-specific, but that's a good overarching start to where you want to be thinking about things in terms of DAOs and how you want to participate in them.
And now, what about the number of people that can be in a DAO for it to be a safe legal structure?
So the SEC's kind of weighed in on this. The rule of thumb tends to be 100 or less because you want to avoid the prong of advertising. So you don't want to be publicly saying, come join our DAO, and advertising that you're going to make this huge investment and you're going to flip some profits. Like that's going to trigger some other SEC issues that you really don't want to fall into. So if you can keep that number pure and under 100, then it helps the argument that this is truly a community, an investment club is what you're trying to be, and not some huge investment fund that's just making decisions automatically.
We also want to be thoughtful about who those 100 people are, right? And making sure that those 100 people are maybe not engaging in some nefarious types of activities on the side, right? So how do we legally check who those 100 people are?
So the term that we see in this world a lot is KYC, which is know your customer. A lot of the protocols and applications out there already have mechanisms in place to affirm who their customers are. They do that because they've already had this Howey Test. To get listed in America, to be operating in America, they have these mechanisms in place. So one of the things that helps is finding a wallet, which is how you're going to interact with your governance token, your NFTs, and your tokens in general. Finding one of those wallets that already has KYC elements in it becomes very crucial in the DAO that you operate. You want to pick a wallet that has already addressed some of those know your customer elements so that you don't have to do it yourself. That's less work for the DAO. It makes it easier, and it's very important to understand who you're working with and where they are.
Okay, so we're going to choose a DAO based on the purpose that is aligned with the purpose that we want to take part in. We are going to make sure we've carved out enough time to participate fully in the DAO, and we're going to make sure we choose a wallet, or if we have not, that we go through the KYC process. Yes. There's one more thing, isn't there?
Yeah, you want to be careful about how you advertise. It's much more important to find a group of people that you know with private invites. Like, I want you to be part of my DAO. I don't want to post it on social media. I don't want to post it all over Twitter, because now you're brushing up against a mass advertisement and you're less of a true investment club, which is where this exemption to the SEC regulations comes from.
So, I think sometimes women get a bad rap for being risk averse, and we're risk rational. So now we have all of the information that we need to make a decision if we want to invest with a DAO or not. And there are definitely considerations from a legal perspective.
Absolutely.
But we've walked through what those considerations are. So as long as you are choosing that DAO in alignment with the way that you want to engage, and then making sure that the elements of the Howey Test are thought through, there is a KYC element, and that there's no massive marketing purposes to bring on too many people into that DAO to invest together, we should be safe.
Should be. It depends. I'm your attorney, but I'm not your attorney. So I always have to caveat that. If you ever have questions, I think consulting counsel is crucial. Asking if your DAO has consulted counsel might be a good indicator that they've thought through this process and they are trying to protect their members. So always be cautious and always try and think through these elements. But if you cover what we covered here as a starting point, you're off to the races for sure.
That's right. So this is meant to be that starting point. And now from here, you can open up another tab in your browser and start Googling, start looking up these things. Do your own research, DYOR.
Yes.
We love those letters together. So DYOR on whatever DAO you might choose to take part in.